Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Online Smicha. Now that Baruch Hashem the Yomim Tovim are over, it's time to realize what lesson we actually have from one of the first Parshias right after Yom Tov Sukkos that maybe we should study again and again. In the Parshas Noach, towards the end of the Parsha after the Mabul, the Pasuk says, Vayachal Noach Isha Adama Vayita Kodem. Noach worked with the ground, worked with the earth, and he planted a kodem, a vineyard. And then we know, as the story goes on, what happened. Vayesh min hayayin, he drank from the wine. Vayishkar, and he became drunk. And as the story goes on, something not so proper. Why is it this story so elaborate here in Parshas Noach? And perhaps it's Hashgacha Pratis right after a Yom Tov like Zman Simchaseinu, Simchas Torah, and as the Shulchan Aruch says that in the Yomim Tovim, when people drink a lot of wine, it is a chiyuv for Bezdin to watch out, to make sure that everything is under control. Actually, if you look into the Ramban on this part in this parsha about the drinking of the wine, so the Ramban says like this: V'nichtav inyin hayayin b'noyach. The reason why the Torah makes such a fuss about planting wine, planting grapes, and getting drunk concerning Noach, ki yesh by azhara mimenu yoisa mi parshas nizirus. There is a tremendous lesson we all have to learn from Noach. Noach, hatzadik tomim. Noach was this great righteous man. Asher tzidkoi hitzil kol ha'olam. His righteousness is what saved the world. If not for Noach, God forbid, the Eibishter was ready to destroy the world. This great tzaddik Tomim, gam oisoi hechti hayayin, even one like the level of Noach, God forbid, stumbled through wine. Vehevi oisoi lidei bizoyin v'kil lazarei. And Rahman al-Litzlan, it caused him an embarrassment, and it caused for generations a kalala, a curse, Rahman al-Litzlan, for his kid. And the Ramban goes on, Ukvar mitzanu eskenus hayayim b'medrash. And you look in Medrash Tanchuma, you'll see how the Medrash Tanchuma elaborates ba'arichus, the negative parts of drinking wine and how it could hurt you. I'm going to quote some of those statements, but you have to know that even in the Aramaic or the Gemara term, we find that wine is chamar medina, chamar. So it says in Svarim, chamar is a gematria 248, because when you drink a little wine, you drink more wine, and now you shouldn't think it just taste buds are in your mouth. Wine is chamar is 248. It takes over literally every part of your body. Every part of your body gets controlled by the amount of wine you drink, and the more you drink, the more you lose it, as we say. So let's quote some of how it's mentioned in Medrash Tanchuma, as the Ramban just said. Hayayin gairim la'arba dvarim. Drinking wine causes four things. Four things, big deal, right? Avodah zara, gilui arayis, shvichas damim, and lashon hara. The four of the worst averos is remedy to Rahman al-Litzlan to fall into that trap is yayin. Hayayin, the Medrash Tanchuma says, mevias ha'adam l'chol averos sheba'ilam. It starts off with those four. It leads to Rahman al-Litzlan any avera. Znus, shvichas damim, geneva, va'yayin harbe mevias ha'adam l'dei chet, says the Medrash Tanchuma. Drinking a lot leads a person to do many sins, ulatzara gedoyla, many troubles, ulachisarin kiss, and it's actually very expensive. It makes him lose a lot of money. How does he lose a lot of money? So you see in Shulchan Aruch, people think that once a person reaches a certain level, he's not in control of himself, and being that he's not in control of himself, he's not responsible for his actions. So let me tell you what the Gemara says in Eruvin. The Gemara in Eruvin, Daf Samachay, says, Shikar, somebody who is drunk, Mikchay Mekach, Umemkare Memchar, if he purchases something, the item is purchased. If he sells something, it's considered sold. His sale is complete. You can't change his mind. Oh, I was drunk. God forbid if while he was drunk, shikr, he did an avera that the punishment is Rachmana litzlan misa, he deserves to get that punishment. Malchus, if he does an avera that he gets malchus for, malchus. Kloloi shodavar, says the Gemara. You want to understand what the status of a drunk person is? Harei hu kipikeach l'chol dvarav. He's concerning all halachas. He's considered like a regular, smart, intelligent man. Ella shepater min atfila. The only exemption there is for a drunkard is he can't daven. It's disrespectful to go to the king, Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, while he's drunk. But concerning all other halachas, he's responsible for his actions. Amar Rab Chanina. So Rab Chanina comes along and says, how can you, come on, the man is dead drunk. How could he be held responsible for what he did? So Rab Chanina says, this is only if he didn't get crazy drunk. Okay, he could be held responsible. But if he got to the level of how drunk light was, which is a shear, he's totally lost, pater mikulam. At that point, he cannot be held responsible. Now, you think he's done. You think it seems to be the more you drink, the better it is. So I want to tell you a story, a tshuva from the tshuva Sabach, Siman Samech Beis. The Bach was asked, Ruvain, an individual, was by a Sudas mitzvah, Sudas chasim v'kala, and he became freilach, he became tipsy, and he started throwing glass at the wall. Now he's freilach because his friend is getting married, Simchas chasim v'kala. When he threw the glass at the wall, next day somebody comes to the Rav and says, Rav, I want to take Ruvain to Bezdin because I got hurt. Some glass came into my eye. I had to go through a procedure, and the procedure is expensive. I feel that he owes me that money to pay the doctor's bills or the damage. So they came to the Bach, or they asked the Shaila from the Bach. The Bach answers and says, what you are excusing yourself, and you feel that you don't have to pay by saying, Shahoya Shikr, I was drunk, Nira She'enai Taina. I believe that's not a good claim. Because when the Gemara or Rab Chanina says that if one reached the level of Shichrusay Shaloit, he is pater, it's not pater from everything. It's not pater from everything. The Bach learns Pshat, it's specifically of those three items the Gemara said before. What are the three items? The Gemara spoke about Mekach Memkar. If a sale is complete, so yes, if he was a little tipsy, the sale is complete. If he gets crazy drunk, fine. Shichrusay shaloit, your transaction is not a transaction. Or Misa or Malchus. But what the Gemara does not mention, Nizikin, damages, even if one is drunk, crazy drunk, Shichrusay shaloit, he's responsible for what he did damage. Why? Because a person always has to be aware never ever to get that drunk. A person has the responsibility that he's not allowed to get that drunk. So much so, afilu yashin, even one who sleeps and he damages while he is sleeping, is responsible to pay. I'm going to conclude with some of the Maimarim Chazal, again, which is mentioned in the Medrash or in Gemara, of people should be aware about the severity of drinking. Obviously, we all know that in the halacha, sometimes you're not allowed to drink, or sometimes while you're drinking, or while you drank, you can't perform certain mitzvahs, and that is a shear for itself. But let's talk about different statements that we find Chazal say about this. The Gemara says, the Tanchuma says, before a person drinks wine, he's edel. Hareyu tam. He's a simple man. Kekeves zu she'ein yedas klum. Just like a shepsela walking around, everything is happy. Shasa kahoigen. If a person takes a little drink, like a normal person, Harehu giber ka'ari. V'omer ein kamoiser ba'elam. A little drink is not that bad, but he starts already acting like he's the only man around. He's strong like a lion. V'omer ein kamoiser ba'elam. Kivan sheshasa yoser midai. Once a person drinks too much, I'm going to say it as it's written, because it's a Torah, and it might be Lashon Meguna. Nase kechazir mislachlich b'mei raglayim u'v'davar acher. A person overdrinks, drinks more than he can handle. It's Rahman al-Islam, like a chazir rolling in mud, in schmutz. Nishtaker, if he becomes drunk, nasa kekoif, he's like a monkey. Oimed u'meraked u'mesachik, jumps and dances and makes fun. U'maitzi lifnei hakol nivlas peh, says whatever comes out of his mouth. Ve'ena yodeya ma yaseh, and he has no idea what he is doing. And that is the severity of the wine. The Gemara in Psachim says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu oyev esmi she'ena mishtaker. The Eibishter loves a person who does not allow himself to get drunk. The Gemara in Nida says, V'soinei talmidei chachamim shemistakrim. God hates, if you could use that word, hates talmidei chachamim who lower themselves and lose respect of Torah by getting drunk. So Rabbi Isai, as I mentioned before, Zman Simchasinu, we know what there's a Geshmak Vart that says that by Shlomo Melech, it says by other ace that he mentions in Kehelis, it says ace lih. It's a time to do something. By Rekoid, it says ace rekoid, not ace lirkoid. So one of the Mefarshim explained that true happiness is a spontaneous dance. You feel so happy, you dance automatic. You don't have to have the side effect to arouse you to be happy. Because if you're really happy, you're going to dance rekoid. It's a time that demands joy, and you don't need to have any side effects. Yashar Koyach, and please join us again next week.